Good evening. My name is Ernest T. Dignified.
Yeah.
My partner, Percival J. Serious. Tonight we will be addressing the problem of hemorrhoids and the modern mystic. Series 93-136, items 1 through the ever-popular 65. The winner of today's third race was We're All on a Journey, but Most Aren't Going Anywhere, who paid 10 to 10. Only forces not absolutely certain whether they totally control you or not must remind you that they do. CF, life itself and its institutional representatives. The old sage one day so said. The mind is a curious creature in that rather than do nothing, it will entertain all manner of irritants. Now hit the dirt and give me 50. Is that 50 push-ups, Sarge, or 50 meditations? Okay, the rest of you break for lunch and showers. News and history are for the purpose of reminding man how close he can come to being insufficiently rigid and civilized. Hormones, neurons, body, and mind. A drama both mild and calm in but one short act. Ah, my dear, to the manor born, is it? No, my lord, to the barn born, to the manor imagined. Ah, my dear, my precious, precious dear. The title of the lecture was listed as How to Tell How Things Are Going, and the speaker opened with these words. Sickness counts for nothing unless you die. And before anyone could raise an objection, he continued, if you doubt this, just look at a dog. Mere illness, no matter how painful or serious, possesses any validity unless the creature. No mere illness, no matter how painful or serious, possesses any validity unless the creature experiencing can speak and has a master to speak to. And someone in the audience finally interrupted and shouted out, well, how about life itself as regards the human experience? The wise old uncle told the young ones, lest you feel either too proud or ashamed of your top or bottom, remember this. Neurons naturally envy hormones, and hormones surely would neurons if they were capable of such mental feats. The simplicity of a suave and seasoned city life. You won't seem hip and sophisticated to hip and sophisticated people unless you act hip and sophisticated. I forgot, we got a lot of people here from Alabama, Mississippi. Maybe the title was The Simplicity of the Suave. Does that help? Not denying her, just... Another of the things that everyone knows but no one has ever heard described. If you want to do something you normally wouldn't do, constrict your consciousness. And while this can be assisted by alcohol and other drugs, it is simplest done by the mind. One man said to his friend, what I really like about words is that you can put them together all sorts of ways and make them mean anything you want them to. To which his bud replied, yeah, but you shouldn't say that. Linguistics update. If you have fully functioning neurons and hormones, then you know a dead language whether you realize it or not. The old demented one. No, make that the old sagacious diagnostician. So spoke. The stomach controls what the brain does, but not the other way about. And everyone immediately had so many questions that he refused to answer any of them. To be polarized and partisan is to be adequately rigid. A ruddy reminder. Everything that works on everyone, on anybody else, will work on you. Local reality told the people, civilization ties your hands so as to set you free. And thus far they believed, for this far it's been so, in a so-so manner. Another free tip from New Intelligence. The proper way to escape an illusionary prison is to neither take your captivity nor your liberation personally. You see, son, said the old salt, fish taking imaginary nets as real is what gets them caught. To evidence his increased comprehension, one man shaved this message in the scalp of his front lawn. 'Tis a sorry dog who will turn on his own master, or a man who will criticize life. That didn't take into account the fade that he whipped on the petunias at the side of the house. One man said to his old man, one kid said to his old man, in mulling over this idea of expanding one's consciousness, it strikes me that you could either be working on the mind itself or on the thoughts of the mind. He looked askingly at the elder after saying this, so his father replied, okay, ponder this. If you wanted to go on an automobile trip, would you first work on the car or on the travel plans themselves? And the kid staggered off in a more excellent funk than he began with. Every culture's had a song entitled, Love is the Cure for Everything, which is another way of noting that pleasurably stimulated hormones can always lay neurons temporarily to rest. He misses it who does not see that well-placed lust has had as great a civilizing influence in its own fashion as has all of the arts and religions. Helen, where are you when we... One day, some time ago, a man called all of his neighbors together and said to them, I think the time has come when we should start acting like being alive is more serious and important than we've always taken it to be. And in mass astonishment, they all exclaimed, why in holy hell would we want to do that? And he suddenly shook his head violently and said, geez, forgive me. Life made me say that. Yes, folks, in that particular instance, it was indeed a close call. But as you all know, only too well, that was not the end of the matter. No, sir, not the end of the matter by a long shot. Shit. Some city neural fiscal news. The headline on the brochure read, Invest in a coma. And even those who understood it pretended they didn't. The basement dweller's credo. If it don't either make you dizzy, cause you to belch, or get you pregnant, to hell with it. Note, many people who live upstairs secretly live in the basement. No. And now some community news. Life has an outreach program. It's known as death. Amongst the mystical hordes, they believe that having a system, any system, is better than no system at all. Another way you can look at civilization is as it being the complaint department and attempted return counter for those times when neurons are really sick about something hormones has made them do. Started to say call out the guilt patrol, but I'm not going to say that. The secret connect between lust and the expansion of consciousness. Everyone should be attracted to someone better looking than they are. Or, retold, Never get on a bus that has a driver dumber than you are. And had we not forcibly restrained them, all of the passengers would have yelled, "We knew that." Yeah, right. Yeah. How it is regarding backward people and regressive thought. If you pick on someone, they'll think they're important. One peculiar, or perhaps just particular, view of the sequence of logical progress, local progress. First, the mind, then individual personality, then civilization, and then it just all goes to hell. Statistical divisions at normal levels, abnormally considered. Everyone is slightly different, just different enough to believe they're different. And now, here's to your health. Life provided man with head lice so as to remind him that he had a brain. And now, from our gym, some more health and exercise news. No brain, no pain. Unusual science. Life continues to discover itself, and man is one of its instruments. What efforts are you making in a similar direction? The benefits of improv and mental uncertainty. When it comes to neural dancing, a man with no script can always dip. Or retold. Leap, then decide where you're going to land. The overly serious, civilized like to dream and dramatize states of less civility and restraint. Dream of and dramatize, but not live in them. Hey, they may be civilized, but they ain't crazy. Daddy, what do the civilized dream of? Ah, come on, little sport. You know as well as I the answer to that. And now, our thought, or as some like to say, vapors for the day. There are some things people simply don't want to talk about. But hey, that's okay, because there's some people that things don't want to talk about either. Winter gardening tip. The only criticism of man that could even approach being possibly valid would be one that was new and fresh. There is no criticism of man that is new and fresh. Now go fertilize those crops. One thing, no thing can be subject to expose unless you first take it seriously. Another helpful hint for those who do not like to be disappointed by things that should not have had such a capacity as applies to a more alert person to begin with. I'm sorry, I can't reread it. I didn't say I won't, I said I can't. Stable, strongly held political opinions are like a chain link fence for the mind. They're ugly and will rust, but you don't have to feed them. Whenever he was just coasting along, having everyday thoughts, as one guy'd say to himself, "Here I am again, riding the old doo-doo train." If you give up the mythical quest, you're dead before you die. And the earlier you die around these parts, the better off you are. The preceding message was brought to you through the combined courtesies of life, death, and local conditions. Each and every one, I might sardonically add, your friend. Mortal prostheses in a nutshell. Weak people are happy people, so long as strong ones still survive. At least I didn't pull in Bill Withers' head. For the day's cooking lesson, the chef began by singing. Take out the nourishment, take out the fun, take out the flavor, and when you've done, what have you got? And the class yelled back, civilization! Yeah. And they all got an A for the day. Over at the city newspaper, one of the social commentators and critics found that pouring honey into his typewriter worked no better than did pouring in glue. The world's first 3D fairy tale. All right now, children, there are two kinds of bears out in the woods that can get you. Spatial ones and temporal ones. But also remember, neither can get you if you don't think about them. One man's consciousness tried to get him to teach his mind this little maxim. Long boats, long oars. Short boats, even longer ones. Although I, for one, am not positive the mind would have gotten it anyway. Definitions ahoy. The living dead, zombies. The living dazed, everybody else. City cerebral survival tip. Those who think and speak in cliches may live to speak another day. And just out of ready hearing distance, the all-star Who Cares Memorial Marching Band began playing their most requested number, their version of Handley's How's That Grab Your Chorus? When it came definition time, one little lad stood up and delivered his. Civilization, he pronounced. Civilization, the world's only imaginary structure built and supported solely by the common consent of its inhabitants. And a girl sitting up front verbally confronted him by retorting, yeah, well, how about man's personality? Yeah, I was going to add that. One man named his dog Dumbass Gruntweiler, with the explanation it was either him or me. A viewer writes, why did you recently say that you should never send a duck on an important mission? Watch out, viewer. Lower your head quick. That's right, you guessed it. It was either him or me. Conscience. What the plantation master has told all the neurons to do to hormones anytime they seem too happy and satisfied. Civilization must be just as rigid as its inhabitants. After all, who do they look to as their model? Phony see and phony do keeps us phony through and through. One man's mind, aggressive little devil it sometimes was, one day said to him, those who give me trouble, I give trouble. To which the man replied, save your breath. I above all knew that already. The real mystical teachers are those who themselves were never taught. Original consciousness was like a stilled ocean. Then the mind appeared as ever restless waves. There is no such thing as a stilled ocean. What are you, nuts? I don't care how you're dressed or what you're called. If you're not always looking ahead, you're no sailor. The worst is behind us for one simple reason. The worst is always the past. What are you, nuts? No. How to tell that you're getting old? You begin to doubt that the worst is behind you. One sophisticated city father told his would-be hip son, "It doesn't pay to criticize others." And the kid asked why. "Because us critics never unionized." As he sat by the roadside, a man mused, "Since civilization is a car that's not going anywhere, you can push or pull it up make-believe hills with ropes of only dreams." And a lion lurking in some bushes nearby, hearing this, muttered, "Man, people have all the luck." One man became so intimately familiar, if you know what I mean, with his own mind that he became absolutely sick of it. Death, the ultimate rigidity? No. Life, civilized life. Rigor, monotonous. In a sudden flash of insider's sight, one man was dustily struck. The clearest thought I perhaps ever had is, "I'm hungry." The mind can only speak precisely regarding things it has constructed. The body does not have to speak, since it does not invent its life. Daddy, is this why civilization has no one to look down on? Say, Professor Lemsky, do you think we could wrap this little matter up now? Well, Clifford, I don't see why not. Here goes. A rigid man is a happy man if he lives in Stiff City. I like it, Professor. I really do like it. Well, good, Clifford. Real good. Remember, boys and girls and sheet surfers, if you can't fool yourself, you can't fool anybody. A modern and ancient medical description. Ordinary consciousness. A personal brain constriction. And even more news from the city. The poster on the side of the building read, "Be civilized, have regrets." Here's yet another approach to that thoroughfare. You can look at the mind as a highway and its thoughts as never-ending, unstoppable passing cars, or as a road out of here. Those who criticize man's normal civilized existence simply reveal their own stupidity in that they take not into account the alternative. Tote that barge, lift that veil, get a little too frisky, and you'll lose your place in line. I'm not going to add coffers to the Gershwin estate. Civil entertainment, another view. Consciousness doesn't care if pigs roll in shit. Enjoy the show. In describing certain aspects of the city, one man told his son, "Over there, those who tell you things are getting worse are lying to you. And those who tell you that they're getting better are giving you too much credit." One man's neuron said to his hormones, "Let's clear this up once and for all. Tell me which aspects of civilization don't you like?" And they replied, "Name one." One guy got so multicultural and multi-everything else in his thinking that he began to lose his mind. And in response thereto, ran to the rooftops and yelled, "Hooray!" I don't guess I have to worry about offending too many psychiatric personnel watching our show, do we? I don't think so. All of this kind of weird activity is simply explained in one sentence. The world's most common hobby is being an ordinary part of life. The most fascinating is trying not to be. Footnote unrelated to the above. What's the good of knowing what's going on if that wasn't your intention to begin with? In the mind, it's always questions It's always question and answer time. In man's life, this seems to keep him in constant strife. But oh my dear, just look a here. Whatever in the world is that unusual thing over in that undisturbed corner? An adventure that has an end is not really much of an adventure. The mind is here and there and in time everywhere. But consciousness is now. Ordinary consciousness, the definition, a personal brain constriction. And the world's most common hobby is being an ordinary part of life, which is obviously the most sane hobby, the most acceptable hobby, the most personable hobby, while the world's most fascinating is trying not to be. And the footnote that was unrelated said, what's the good of knowing what's going on if that wasn't your intention to begin with? I guess I will submit to the inclination to point out again if possible, how the weirdness of this kind of activity is not all that weird. And how you, well, let's just say, let's pretend that we're using us as an example. And pretend that I was playing such a part that I could say something that sounded so striking. You know, you'd think, boy, I never thought of that. And it might even be true, but my, how strange. Nobody in the world would ever thought of that. Now, if things are too far afield at the ordinary city level, people are adjudicated to be insane, to be nuts. If somebody says something absolutely so unexpected, just at the ordinary level, nothing strange. The man just stands up at a question and answer period at an investment seminar and hollers, or asks a question. He says, where does Boo Powell live now? 2 or 3 instances like that, and his family will begin, if he has one, to be concerned over the person. So it's not that kind of unexpectedness. The unexpectedness is this sort of activity. Life it comes out in different ways and it changes as life grows, like everything else in life. This is invented as man-made in the sense as opposed to the physical hormonal demands of literal survival, because we can say, as I already have, every other thing that man invents, every aspect of civilization, you could technically, literally live without. And I would have to say that about this, except it's not true. Because some people go, screw it, if they had to do without it. I shouldn't. That sounds too bad. If they had to do without, they'd say screw it, and then they'd probably just become alcoholics or go back to drugs or something. The strangeness, in a sense, is that people can hear it. Ordinary people can hear such as this and not really get upset by it. Not think it's all that strange, just kind of walk away from it. And I had tried to suggest a few weeks back, which is I'll admit, unusually testy, if not damn near non-existent area, to say that people can hear this and they don't see the significance in it. That they won't just say, well, that's insane. Because you can do that. That's easy to have ordinary people. If that's your intent, well, I say it's easy. I shouldn't say that. I'll have all kinds of teenage, early 20s would-be artists trying to buy my book or course, and I don't have one. I'm like, wait a minute. You mean it's easy to piss off grown people in middle class? Sure. It's hard to believe that anybody would consider themselves an artiste of any kind in music or any performing or plastic arts. If they can't even get around to making their elders mad. So it's not that. But what I was getting at is this sort of, let's just call it intellectual activity, kinds of views of life. And of course, the people, individual involved with it ultimately has something to do with a practical working, a practical retooling of their own nervous system, even if they don't know what they're doing to start with. But at any rate, on the surface of it, for people to hear about it, it does not actually inflame them. It does not actually make them feel as though they're exposed to insanity. If they listen at all, it's just like they don't know what it is. That's I'm speaking for them. That would be their most, if I could grab some reason we tricked large crowds of ordinary people and I just talked just like this. And maybe I dressed up better and we had a different ambiance. And we said it's going to be it's a new psychological view of contemporary life. Well, even ordinary people won't pay extra for redundant synonyms. But we could try. And if they listened, and I just talked long enough to, it wouldn't take long that their attention, to say the least, would begin to sorely drift. And so, assuming I could see the crowd and I had enough sense, I talked just enough that said a few things, kind of things that we talk about all the time, but from the ordinary view, they would be highly unusual views of life. Before their attention began to drift, whatever it takes, 15 or 20 minutes, and I said, well, that'll be all for the night, and I hope you enjoyed it, and come back to see us. And all, the ordinary run-of-the-mill shit. And then if we had somebody outside, said we're doing a poll or we're from a TV station or something, said we were listening to that, what do you think of that? They wouldn't know what to say. The most common would be, well, I'm not sure I understood what he was talking about. I know he started off for a while and he was talking about something like civilization or the arts, but their general attitude would be, I'm not sure what he's talking about. And I love decent, ordinary people. I got to tell you the truth. They're goddamn liars. When it's done just right, and there is no formula for this, and there is no school to where it's taught, and people who do understand a little bit about what's going on that can see the sequence of life and where the future really is, which is not, don't call our psychic hotline. I mean, that was a fraud. I thought you understood that. They tied up our phone lines here since that last show when I made that little joke about that. No, we're not talking about tell the future like that. Just people who understand what's going on in life at any given time. All you got to do is shift. Think about somebody in the past. I won't name names, but whoever you might have thought would have been some great mystical or transcendental thinker or philosopher, religious, some great person in the past. And let's assume that you could look back now over their so-called remembered or recorded words, and you read and you think, boy, that, what a guy. Boy, did he see things. I'd love to have met him. And obviously, no pretense. He obviously wasn't insane. He, it wasn't a cult he was running. It just got it. I just love reading that. At the same time with him was a guy down the street, down the next village, saying almost the same thing, almost, but just enough that nobody remembers him because they could dismiss him. I knew that'd help a lot. Really, I'm telling you. There was somebody, I said down the block, there was somebody on the planet, somebody within the same general culture, not only was saying something very similar, but it could have been someone who realized, well, hey, so-and-so down there he's getting famous. People are listening to him, and I've been trying to do this kind of stuff, and I've been reading weird books all my life. And this could have been, we could be talking about 3000 BC, by the way. Just think about anybody you want to, up until yesterday. And so if somebody down in the next village or somewhere else could go, well, now I've listened to him talk. I went over there and I've heard all that. I can pull that same shit. I'll move 50 miles away from here and I'll do it. But I'm not going to just absolutely rip him off. They might know that. So I'll change a few things. I'll throw in my own stuff. And what he'll throw in will be such that he'll be dismissed as a nut. That he'll say, well, you've heard so-and-so down here talking about man's consciousness or man's mind is like such and such. And he's told you that one way to calm it down or one way to increase your understanding of life is to do such and such. Well, he's pretty good. I've heard him. I've had reports about that. But let me tell you this. God has been speaking to me personally, and immediately people got a way out. Sane people. Or he can say, you people never heard of UFOs, but I've had people from other worlds coming to tell me, to give me better details about what he's trying to describe. See, immediately. And he was talking about almost the same thing, but he threw in just enough. He didn't know what he was doing or what he was about to do, but just enough that it could be dismissed. Not that this is not always dismissed, but it's dismissed with some prejudice. It is dismissed with what seems to be good cause, like, Jesus, he was kind of interesting. Two guys out there in the audience talking about my guy that I just made up, and they say, he was pretty interesting what he was talking about. I was going to listen. And he started this shit about God told him. One of those guys again. They wander off. And if his name ever comes up again, they go, oh yeah, I remember him. To them he's just a religious crackpot. Or whatever he was. That's just the easy one. But when it's done in a certain way, with no particular planning, as I said, and there is no absolute formula, and people who do it, if they don't do it right, they didn't do it wrong, because there's no right way to do it. But those who you remember, those that history remembers, they're almost bulletproof in a certain way. Now they do get institutionalized, and they do become part of the common currency to such a point that somebody in the past that is now considered a, let's say, a religious figure, and think of anyone you want to, any of the, just a small handful of those publicly known, that's not how they started out. You should know that by now. And so what they remembered now as is not a clear reflection. Big deal. But I'm just telling you, at the time they were bulletproof to what they were doing. That's the only reason that they did become part of history. Albeit as distorted, as watered down, because that's just what happens. But at the time, what they were doing was almost bulletproof. That is, people could hear it, and they couldn't dismiss it. They could walk away, and somebody say, what the hell was he talking about? And they go, I don't know. Was it some kind of, is he trying to stir up some kind of religious controversy? I don't know. Was he trying to start some kind of, political revolution, or? I don't know. Well, who's he against? I don't know. Well, what was he trying to say? What was he trying to get you to do? And that's when it really gets weird. They think, geez, I don't know. And I wish you hadn't brought it up, because they can't believe nobody invites you to dance. And they say, so-and-so will be here this afternoon, either for $5 entry fee or no fee. Whatever it is, somebody invited you to dance, and you go there, and you leave, and they say, what did he try to say? I don't know. That gets spooky. I mean, people, look, they don't even want to think about it. There is no word. I'm saying spooky. I assume you get the drift. Because they left, and then you got even worse. You jumped out with your clipboard after you said, well, what was he talking about? I'm doing a survey, and you say, well, I don't know. And you went through just sort of what I did, and you said, well, all right, well, what in general? I mean, he had some purpose in being there. He had to, right? And you'd go, well, what was he trying to sell? What was the point when he got through? I mean, what did you feel he was trying to say you? Momentarily, it would strike them as really weird and spooky. Because they'd think, again, the same answer. They go, I don't know. But then then they'd try to walk away. You would try and just forget it. Like, It's the person with a clipboard grabbed you. This would really get bad. And say, wait a minute. You don't find that weirder than the weirdness? That you don't know? And that you can't think about the point that, well, I stood there and listened, and he went to all the trouble. Somebody showed up. They put up a little stage there. They got a microphone. And the guy talked. And we got through. And you say that you couldn't tell what he was trying to sell. Yeah, I said that. And they'd still try to get away right after that. But if you grab them again, so wait a minute. You found the whole thing kind of weird. But you don't find it really weird that they wouldn't try to say anything. But you don't find it doubly weird that you can't stand to hear that. And by then, they'd elbow their way loose from you like, What is the purpose in anything in life? To use all my many descriptions of primary and secondary purposes of life and aspects of life are the neurons and the hormones and entertainment and information, the news and entertainment, all of these being operational dichotomies. That's simply different octane ratings in your gas tank here on this planet, for those of you who can yet break free of the gravitational hole. In all of those, you can see it as this: that in the full life of man, whether it be up here above the survival level or down here, whatever men do, whether it seems to be natural and absolutely de rigueur for life, eating, sleeping, whether it be that or it seems to be, and what I've been describing up here, the absolute invented world, the conjectured world of man, the intellectual world, civilization itself, and all of that, still everything is either useful or regression. So, you are left, I was trying to leave you at the spot, that whatever goes on in the life of man, all the way from the mute survival level demands of the stomach, the sex organs, of the body itself, food, sleep, etc., all the way from that to things that seem to be absolutely, unquestionably superfluous, non-required, art, music, civilization itself, then it's either got to be necessary, at least parenthetically useful, if it's either necessary or entertaining. And entertainment is normally a distraction from being civilized. It is dreams of aggression. That's why I was trying to get you to see about the movies. It is the celebration, apparently, of evil, the celebration of hormones, the celebration of murder, the celebration of the breaking of all moral standards, all laws. Oh, well, at the tail end of the movie, of course, the end of the TV show, good's got to triumph. But still, entertainment is a celebration of something you're being sold. You're getting external support on your own pre-sold idea of, goddamn, I wish I wasn't civilized. I wish I wasn't civilized, we could get by with it. This sort of thing. It's neither. It's why people wander off with it, and if you ask, what was that? And they go, I don't know. Was it useful? I don't know. Was it entertaining? I don't know. Seriously, they don't. I mean, they might say, at first I asked, it's kind of enjoyable. Well, yeah, it was enjoyable 5 or 10 minutes. And then they begin to drift. And you can say, well, are you going back? Oh, I don't, I don't know. Well, if they had to know one of these one time, next week, would you show up? I don't know. Next month? I don't know. In other words, to say, was that entertaining? They go, well. So you're left, is it useful from an ordinary view? I don't know. Well, was it entertaining? I mean, it was just, you understand, at best, they might say, well, yeah, it was for a few minutes. You can say, well, did it get annoying? I mean, did what he say begin to insult you? Did he begin to attack your religion or your race or your culture? Well, no. And you can say, well, I was looking behind the curtain and I saw your eyes begin to glass after about 7 or 8 minutes. And you'd say, well, I can't deny it. So you can't say you're entertained. Well, I said it was kind of entertaining to start with. Start with 2 or 3 minutes. Back to what I was going to try and get you to consider that is even stranger than the strangeness is how can what seems to be some kind of information, ordinary people that say, well, it's somebody's ideas, it's somebody's theories, they can call it anything they want to. Why is it that can seem to fall into some absolute crack that seems to be unclassifiable? that it seems to be neither, have I spoken a good cliche yet? Neither fish nor a duck.
No.
It ruined the alliteration, but half a cliche is better than none. It seems to be neither. That does not seem to be of any great interest, and it doesn't seem to be entertaining, and yet, at the same token, that'll make up for that'll make up for me mucking with fish and fowl. It seems to be neither, and yet they cannot attack it. They can't say, well, I'll tell you what's wrong with that, because they really left with, well, I'm not sure what it is. I'm pondering. All right, I'll tell you. I told you several weeks ago. But this time I thought if I built it up a little bit. How can it be that something seems to make grammatical sense, that ordinary people could hear it and not be able to deny it, not be inflamed by it, not feel aggressive about it, and just left almost looking like a poster boy for nonplusedness? How can it be? What would it represent? What does their attitude represent? Not the info, not the ideas, but what does it represent that people can hear it and literally not know what to make of it? When it is not insanity by their ordinary definition. They can't, so it's just nuts. You know, it didn't make any sense. Because for the few minutes that they would listen, it makes perfect sense. I mean, the senses all fit together. It doesn't say anything about God's talking to me or people from another planet. It's talking about everyday life. But they begin to listen a little bit, and they're talking about 2 or 3 minutes. What does that represent? What it represents is the fact that everybody knows that these kind of ideas are true. That's why it is not strange. But what's strange is they don't know what the hell to do with it. Which is back to, it was a description here of this kind of weird activity, explained simply in one sentence, and it went, the world's most common hobby is being an ordinary part of life. That's ordinary, sane people, your mother, your father, our president, our pope, our rabbi, our butcher, our taxi driver. That's the most common hobby, is being an ordinary part of life. Semicolon. But the most fascinating one is trying not to be. In the footnote, unrelated to the above, it says, is what's the good of knowing what's going on if that wasn't your intention to begin with? Well, at least I hear 4 or 5. Think about anybody who's ever believed that in some, which everybody has, I'm sure. Strike the I'm sure. Everybody has. We don't deal with opinion, deal with fact. Everybody has. It's not my opinion. That one time you felt that you were so exceptional. That is, that you used to read all those so exceptional books and thought so exceptional thoughts. And now you can sit here, and it seems to be a select group of people on the planet that can just hear point blank stuff said. What if the only difference is everybody knows it? Because, you know, this information I was trying to, also last time if you recall, I pulled out the example of people believing that such and such in civilized life or such and such in the external world causes things like TV violence causes violence in the street. You know, we got to do something about it. Or Hollywood, the immorality of movies coming out of Hollywood is causing a breakdown of the morality of our country. As though immorality or the workings of Hollywood or the workings of the script writers for television, that this stuff, this violence, this uncivil behavior, this lack of seriousness and rigidity is not only coming from another planet, it's coming from another reality somewhere, a parallel universe, as they would say, on some violent TV science fiction shows, I'm sure. That it's coming from somewhere outside of man. This, people like to believe when they look back in the past, when they think it's popped up and they believe they've found some history of this kind of activity, they also treat it that way. Is why the people who talk like that are remembered end up somebody pointing out that, well, he finally told us that God sent him, or he was God. Because what's they going to do with it? Which is the same thing as people nowadays saying, well, the only reason we're acting like we act now is because of the violence on television. Which is the same thing as in saying, well, the only reason that this guy knew to say, look, don't get involved with runaway buses if you want to try and do something with your consciousness. You guys never heard him, but that was something a guy said. It was between the time of Buddha and that Greek guy, Pluto. But it was in there, a guy said that, and I went, wow, some of the people, and after that, after he died, it was so strange they had to believe, then they began to talk about, well, instead of Hollywood, which they didn't know what that was yet, instead of blaming on Hollywood or the script writers, for TV shows, they blamed it on God. Well, God made him do that. God sent him. Well, wait a minute. My brother-in-law one time was over to his house, and he had a cousin there. Well, the woman said she was his cousin. At one time, he cut his toe real bad, and he said something about God sent him, or it was God. It was something like that. You don't like a little confusion right then? You understand? Ordinary people do not look. They think now that they're adding accolades to a man's reputation, to say the least. To say, well, we look back now on so-and-so and all the things that they remembered he said, and it's obvious. If you look into the metaphors that he was using and my own common sense, it's obvious the man was a demigod. I mean, he obviously wasn't an ordinary human. That's the same as blaming violence on television, because then you can dismiss it. Don't lose your place. The reason I say that people actually know what this is it's strange, and I'm not, as you guys know, I'm not using me and what I'm saying as the supreme example. It's just, here we stand, we only got me to use, it's only you and I have me in common as an example. But think about anybody that you thought historically just knew unbelievable things. Forget the idea later that they blame it, well, no wonder he did. God sent him, or he was God's brother. Well, hell, no wonder we're violent. Look at the kind of crap they're putting on television, all those liberals writing the scripts, or conservatives, or defrocked Jesuit mechanics, or something. This information, this kind of thing, whether it be now or 5,000 years ago. Is 5,000 that way? Or 5,000 years ago? What happened to the hitchhike? I just got to think, Marvin Gaye's career has done absolutely nothing, hardly, since he died. Or was that Buddha? I always confuse them. People think that this kind of information, especially ordinary people, is not only otherworldly and etc., but you understand, they believe that this is so far removed, I don't mean me in this, but at any other time in the past, let's say, that it is indeed otherworldly. And most times they go, well, yeah, because it came from God or some cosmic force. In the same way that TV violence is they've shipped it in here from another universe for some reason. They just, Anything that's going on, anything that somebody knows, me or Buddha or Marvin Gaye, some great philosopher, anything that they knew, well, you think they got it? And you guys now, most of you look like you're past the wetting your pants stage. They didn't get it in some cave in Tibet. And if they did, where did the cave in Tibet get it? And then you go, well, that old man that sits over there in the snow and can make such rude noises that start with an F out of one of his ends so he can melt the snow and sit there nude. That's where the rest of them got it. Well, where did he get it? Well, he got it from the guy that taught him. Yeah, and where did he get it? Now we're playing, well, it's not a question between the battle between the environment and man's genetics. No, it's Hollywood. We're talking fodder brains. This info, it doesn't come from another world. The point is, it is life breathing, whatever the info is, whether it was Buddha or Marvin Gaye or me, it doesn't come from another world. And don't take the easy ways. I was giving you credit for not. Well, yes, but those people knew it because they got it from the secret teacher in China. And of course, you can't carry it any farther than ordinary people. You're not supposed to, because you do just what I did. You go, well, where did he get it? Well, there's a long line of the pre-Zen masters. Yeah, let's skip it all. We're in a hurry. Where'd the first one get it? I bet it was when the Big Bang happened, there was a secret. Because I shouldn't do that, because that's getting goddamn close. But anyway, the point is, it didn't come from another world. It didn't come from another planet. It's just seeping out. It's just life-changing. Anything that somebody knows, as extraordinary as it may sound, let's say to you, there's all sorts of other people around. And some of you may remember, used to, most of you got over it, but people used to, many times, through the mail or in person, people would rush up to me with a book and say, have you read this? And it'd be a book on psychology, or some new idea of Zen physics, or some kind of new idea of extraterrestrial chemistry. Just all sorts. They say, turn to page 14. And I knew what it was, because they're going to say, we got scientists now, they're talking about the same thing you've been talking about, but now they're beginning to, yeah, I know. And people would even say, somebody's been studying your material, somebody's been listening, because now they're writing about it. Serious scientists and stuff. I know. Back to the original premise for the night. Premise, I like that. Is everybody knows what's going on, but it doesn't count unless that was your intention. And I'll go ahead and do it for all of you civilians that are here tonight. Snicko. It's over, see. You just thought it was an hour. This is 10 minutes. 12. Well, it's been, all right, I've been talking 12 minutes. And I saw everybody, we're going to go. So, good night, and be sure and come back. And I think somebody's at the door doing a questionnaire. So, if you'd like to participate, it's neither here nor there to us. And we'll pick up again. We'll finish out the question of migraines and the modern mystic. Of course, that makes you wonder which end I started out was going to be him. Which end? Oh.